Hello and welcome to the Real Life Show, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan, visited at home by a special guest. This is my young brother from another mother, right?
Yep.
He's Zambian, but he's doing a program. He's a student in Ethiopia. He's into the aviation industry. I think one of the industries that haven't been exploited much by Africans.
Right.
And this young man right here, I can call him an icon. Remember, this is a segment, a place where we speak to icons, gurus, trendsetters, trailblazers, difference makers. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so this boy right here, his name is Richard Mabenga. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
We want to see your eyes, Richard. Are they red or what? What's happening there?
Nah. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, so this is Richard, and we just want to learn something about
Right.
the aviation industry, how it works, you know. Richard, to begin with, what was your ambition when you were growing up as a kid?
Well, my ambition was, to be able to understand how aircrafts work.
Yeah.
So since I was young, I was always inquisitive.
Okay.
So my mother used to get offended a lot of times when I asked her questions like, how does this work and that works? So sometimes she'll be like, go ask your teacher. So I understood how cars worked because I had enough toys where I could build little things and understand them. So my engineering background was established from toys, being able to manipulate toys, connect them back and forth here, there. So I realized that I was an engineer at the tender age.
Okay.
So I didn't know that it was called engineering, but my mom identified it to me as saying, what you are is an engineer. Engineers are the ones that put different things, different ideas together to bring these types of results. In reality, you bring thoughts to actual things that are useful, like machinery and all that type of stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was my ambition, to understand aircrafts, because I understood how cars worked, but I didn't understand how aircrafts worked. For example, why I say cars and aircrafts is that all other types of machines that exist in the world have either the technology that is running on a car or on the plane. So if you can understand those two, then you understand everything in engineering. But I didn't understand the one that flies
in the air.
Right.
Great. Awesome. Now, Richard, tell me something. There's a difference between a pilot and an engineer.
Yes.
A flight engineer.
Right.
What is the difference?
Well, the difference...
And why did you choose to be a flight engineer instead of a pilot?
Well, there's several factors there that are involved. So, people of different backgrounds come up with different choices in terms of what they want to do with their lives. So for me, everything begins from a family unit.
Okay.
So my decision making, despite what I'm passionate about, I wanted to as well center my life around a family. So the challenges are that if I became a pilot, it would demand more time and I would have less time for my family. So why should I be a flight engineer then? The advantage is that a flight engineer gets to fly and you can also work on ground.
Great.
Yeah, so that was the main reason I wanted to be a flight engineer.
Okay.
Right.
So, but do you do the same? Do you do the same program? What's the time frame if someone is pursuing a career as a pilot? How many years do they have to study?
It's the same duration with Ethiopian Airlines. It's the same duration. It's all about 2 years, and we both get to be qualified in that field. So there are different types of professionals who work with the aircrafts.
Yeah.
So there are some who work on the aircrafts, and some work around the aircraft.
Okay.
So some can fly. So those who fly can be flight crews. So flight crew involves the pilots, the flight engineers, and the flight attendants.
Okay.
And then those who work on ground aircraft engineers and flight engineers. So for example, before an aircraft departs, you must ensure the safety by doing a pre-flight check. So while you're in air, you must be able to understand what sort of challenges are incurred when the aircraft is flying. So there are 3 types of errors that can be encountered in this situation when we're dealing with aircrafts.
Great.
So you might have systematic errors, you might have random errors, and you might have gross errors.
Mm-hmm.
So to simplify this, gross errors are errors that can be man-made. For example, the pilot can make mistakes
Okay.
in his judgment. So that type of error is called gross error.
Okay.
So systematic error is an error that can be predicted by on the basis of the lifespan of aircraft components. For example, when you work on the wings of the aircraft, the engines of the aircraft, when you work on the transmission systems or communication systems of the aircraft, you can understand how long that particular component of the aircraft can last based on the lifespan, because every aircraft component has a designated lifespan according to the manufacturer. So that can be a systematic error that can be detected, because you know that when something has been used more than this time frame, you're most likely to experience challenges, or it will corrode or wear away because of friction and other factors. So that can be a systematic error. So now the interesting error is a random error.
Okay.
So how do you deal with random errors? So standards have been established by the EASA and the FAA. So EASA is a European Aviation Administration, and then you also have the Federal Aviation Administration of America. These are the major bodies. There are other bodies, but these are the major bodies that are there to instruct and act as an administrator in any aviation standard. So they give you rules, for example, on how to use aircrafts, from how to fly, from how to maintain, and everything. So you don't guess on the aircraft, everything, all basics on the aircraft you must read. For you to fly the plane, there's a flight manual. For you to maintain the plane, there's a maintenance manual. So nothing on the aircraft comes with guesswork. Everything is centered around the concept of safety.
What you spoke right there, Richard, is Greek to me.
No,
Greek to me. That was Greek.
I think absolutely basic.
let's get back to normal life. Let's get back to real life, Richard. You got me lost right there.
Sure. Why not?
The question I have for you is: you're a young man. You're not yet 25, Richard.
No, I'm not.
You're a young man and you're doing amazing things.
Right.
The question I have for you is, can an average Zambian afford an aviation course? Because the reason I'm asking so is because most people out there who desire to do what you're doing right now, but I don't know about the figures, man. Can an average Zambian afford the course that you're doing right now?
Well, to be honest, the course is rich in itself because it exposes you to a broad spectrum of engineering concepts and principles. But those are fundamentals that can be applied in any dimension. For example, we are understanding that an aircraft is not some theoretically rocket scientific item. It is a machine, a set of systems that come from basic systems in life, such as mechanics, chemistry, and all these other physics and math. So everything is centered around what we all learn. So basically the foundation that everyone has from high school, where you're subjected to chemistry, physics, math, and all other sciences, that foundation is enough to desire to be in aviation, because you do not need to pursue the main thing. So I would say everyone at least can have an opportunity to do aviation if they're passionate.
Are you a rich kid? Do you come from a rich family? Because I think we need to understand figures here, Richard.
No, what I mean is, I don't want to go into that. So what I mean is, aviation in itself can be simplified. So I'll give you an example of EASA modules. So you can desire to be an aircraft engineer, for example, simply by dividing all the EASA modules into phases as they've done it. So you can start in bits and pieces studying aviation.
Richard,
yes.
How much is it to study your course?
Well, it varies from school to school, so it depends on which school you're looking into. However, my advice and recommendation to the general population is do not look to pursue the whole thing at once, but you can try to pursue individual parts of aviation.
So basically, you won't tell us the figures.
Well, I don't want to discourage anyone from doing aviation because figures can range from anything. They can range from as low as...
So you're saying that it's quite expensive, right?
It depends on the school.
Do you need sponsorship?
No, not pretty much. Everyone just needs saving because an individual student can save up to study aviation.
Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, if you go to affordable schools like East African School of Aviation in Kenya, it's really cheap, as low as $2,000 for the whole sort of 8-month program.
Okay.
So I would say if everyone is dedicated towards that, everyone stands a chance to do something in aviation. So when you start, let's say you pursue your avionics license, which would take 8 months. So some programs as short as 6 months, some are weeks.
Oh, really?
Yes, because the beauty about aviation is that we are all working around aircrafts.
Yeah.
So stick around aircrafts, and then one day you might even be able to be the one flying that aircraft.
Now, talking about flying, Richard, when you're on the flight there, do you sleep either as a flight engineer or as a pilot? Do you guys sleep? And if you sleep, what time do you sleep? Because you fly almost every time.
So aircrafts, large aircrafts, for example, I'll give you the 777, Boeing 777. It has got compartments where you can rest compartments for crew. So this means the flight attendants can have their own rest compartments for long flights. Pilots can have their own rest compartments, and in most cases for long routes. So flights are different. They're short routes and long routes. So if you're taking short ones, in most cases you won't sleep. Instead, you can just do a round trip and come back and rest, and you have your rest. But if you're taking long routes, say going to the US, there's enough crew to exchange the duties while on the flight.
Do you eat the same food as passengers?
Well, when you mean same food, because they're passengers who are in first class. So we work for the passengers. If anything, in aviation, the pay comes from the passengers.
Yeah.
So if anything, people in first class have good food.
Is that the same food that they give you, the people in the cockpit?
Crew food? Yeah, it depends on the airline, actually. The airline prepares food for crew and designates food for passengers.
I see you give people parachutes on the plane, right? Do you?
These days, no, because aircrafts have advanced and things have been modified. Instead, they're given life vests.
Okay.
So flying has become safer than ever before because a lot of improvements have been introduced and made. So that has eliminated the need for things like parachutes, which were in pressurized aircrafts, because these days aircrafts are flying as high as 36,000 feet. Now, whether with a parachute or not, you can never survive at 36,000 feet. That was old technology where people would jump at, let's say, 10,000 feet, where you can have air that you can breathe, but above 15,000 feet, and a human being cannot breathe. So even if you give them a parachute, they would never survive, and there's less air pressure.
So in case of an emergency,
right,
what do you do on the plane?
So there's cabin crews, the flight attendants. They are trained to evacuate passengers. They are also trained to ensure safety of the passengers. So they have drills that they make to evacuate all passengers. So for aircraft such as the Airbus A350, you have 8 emergency doors, which each emergency door will be accompanied by somebody who will be evacuating passengers.
So people have to jump in the sky?
Not for the most part. Pilots are trained to land to the nearest airport as soon as possible. descend as soon as possible. But in the worst case scenario, should there be a water body, it is advised for pilots to crash land on the water. That way we have aircrafts, every aircraft has a life raft, which slides. The door of an aircraft, in case you didn't know, underneath it is armed with a life raft, which can be triggered to act as a floating device.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and passengers will float. And there's another one which is thrown into the water for passengers to survive while on the water.
Okay.
And it goes as far as having a canopy, which will act as shade and will protect humans on the ocean or sea from sun rays and cold and temperatures. Yes.
Okay. So interesting.
But this is done by the flight attendants entirely.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the biggest challenges that you have in aviation?
Well, like I alluded to earlier on, aviation can be so addictive that you don't want to do away with aviation.
Yeah.
It controls every part of your life in most cases because everything you do will be centered around it. So the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is managing family to those that are interested in establishing families.
Yeah.
Because it's a good platform where you can make a great deal of money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you might make enough money but never be enough for your family. So money will never be enough for your family, but you will never substitute that for your presence.
Yeah.
So I would say managing family is the biggest issue because let's say you're on break, you have a 2-3 day break, and an emergency happens, another pilot or colleague is sick, and you have to replace them. You have to do their job. So normally you would have two houses for pilots and those who flight crew, flight engineers. So where you can have your main house anywhere around the country, but you also have a house closer to the airport. That's an emergency center, so that should there be anything, you go sleep there and you'll be on standby. So it's called a standby house.
Okay.
So standby houses are houses where flight crew will leave part-time. In an event that they are called, they will easily respond. They will fly to the airport. Right.
Now, Richard,
Right.
5 years from now, where do we see you? 10 years from now?
First thing is I probably want to get married as soon.
Richard, you're young for marriage.
Well, it's a relative statement.
I'm just joking.
I know. But, yeah, so I see myself having a family, which is why I decided to be a flight engineer, so that I can also devote to being present for my family. I do not have to fly necessarily for a living, but I can be on ground. I can still work with the aircraft. I can work on the aircraft on ground. Should there be need, I'll have to fly for larger aircrafts.
Okay.
So, yes. So I see myself having a nice family and hoping to become something like you one day.
I haven't done anything, Richard. Not yet. Not yet. So, what are your last words, Richard, to people who aspire to get into your field? Do what you are doing, maybe become a pilot or an aircraft engineer. What are your last words to the youths out there?
Well, keep pressing, and nothing is impossible. You do not. Money can never define your future. That's a fact. Seek for every possible opportunity to stick around, and do not underestimate any part of aviation, because it's all one body. So it's like the human body with the hands, the eyes and ears. They all do different parts, but at the same time they can all access the brain. So the brain is where everything takes place, all the control happens. So look at this in terms of the aircrafts and everybody who works around it, whether air traffic controller, whether flight attendants, whether aircraft engineers,
host,
everyone. Everybody can get to have the same platform as anyone, whether pilot, flight engineer, anyone can do it if you stick around and have enough patience. And by the way, aviation requires a lot of patience, because it's a field that's so sensitive, in which safety is the first thing, and you must be able to be disciplined, and this discipline comes with patience. So be patient, stick around, and keep pressing, knowing that you can do this because everything is possible, especially with aviation. Right.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the real life show, my journey, and I featured my young brother, Richard Mabenga.
It was a pleasure, big man.
That was good, that was good, Richard. I believe that people have been inspired, they've been motivated, even those who give up on their career in
Right.
aviation after listening to you.
Right.
I am convinced that they'll take a step and they'll be able to
And
pursue.
the first thing I forgot to say is put God first, because especially if you're seeking for a career that involves a lot of money, God must be the central point in your life, because there comes
that's the point right there.
Yeah, there comes a point when nothing can ever do it except God himself.
Yeah.
And I used to be one of those youths who used to think, yo, you know, I can do it myself. I can blah. But there comes a point when
you need God.
You need God, not a human being, because human beings are human beings.
Yeah, they can disappoint you in time.
Yeah,
right?
but God is God.
Yeah.
So in the same way you trust, for example, a pilot to fly you safely to your destination, the same conviction and faith you must apply more to God, because God is more than a pilot.
I like that.
A pilot is just a human who can get sickle cell and just die in the cockpit.
Awesome.
Or something. So sorry to use that example, but I'm just giving an example that we are all immortal, but God is not. And it is very possible that God can make you become whatever you wish to be. Because I'll give you an example, especially during the pandemic, everyone is worried about tomorrow. But this is a very good time to remember what the Bible says about the Israelites. When the Israelites were faced with the Red Sea, they were in front of the Red Sea, and the Egyptians were not a lot of barriers behind them, like less than a kilometer or so, they were behind them. They said, we are finished. But God expects us to have the faith where you say, there is a sea here and my enemies are a few meters behind me, but God will rescue me.
Awesome.
And I'm not saying sit there and just do nothing, but keep doing your best. Walk towards the sea, just like the Israelites walked towards the sea, knowing that God will make a way in the sea. So take that courage, walk into the sea, and know that God will create the path there. So for example, what I mean is stick around the airport, approach aviation institutions or anything. Just stick around, be humble, do whatever you can do. It doesn't matter how little it might be, but exposure is just a ticket on its own to attend the meeting and the show. So so I'll say God first and do your part as well. Keep pushing.
You've heard it from the horse mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Richard. Thank you for watching the real life show. Stay safe and God bless you. From me and Rich is peace.
Peace out.